The jealous friend who envied my performance at the Paris concert hall suddenly came to my house. This time, I pretended not to be home and waited until she left. Being allergic to mangoes, I immediately devoured 10 of them and ended up in the ICU. In my previous life, the flight I was on was hijacked by criminals who went live to demand an exorbitant ransom from my parents. Her parents sold all their assets to gather the ransom, and her fiancé, putting aside past grievances, desperately tried to find a way, yet her best friend shared the live stream link across the internet, falsely accusing the billionaire's daughter of staging her own kidnapping to escape the marriage. In the end, high above the clouds, I was brutally executed by the kidnappers in front of everyone. In this life, lying in a hospital bed, I watched the breaking news about the hijacking on TV and smiled. Are you allergic to any medications? Speak quickly. The doctor's voice was filled with urgency as he prepared some medication. I mustered all my strength and struggled to utter a few words. Allergic to mangoes. As soon as the words were spoken, the nurse beside me suddenly erupted. Are you crazy? You're allergic to mangoes, and you ate so many. The nurse recalled the scattered mango peels on my table just moments ago, her eyes filled with disbelief. Do you want to die? I wanted to explain, but my lips were too swollen to speak. The nurse continued to scold. Now it's all good. You're in full-blown anaphylactic shock, blood pressure dropping, difficulty breathing. Are you satisfied now? The doctor quickly administered an epinephrine injection to me. Hurry up, any later and it'll be too late. The ambulance sped along, and I could feel my body swaying with the sharp turns. The nurse muttered while working, I've seen people asking for trouble, but never like this. You knew you were allergic, yet you still ate it like there's no tomorrow. My vision began to blur, but I could still hear her complaints. The doctor stopped her. Stop talking, focus on the rescue. But the nurse was clearly furious. Doctor, tell me, isn't this just pure troublemaking? The emergency department is already swamped, and now we have to deal with this self-inflicted nonsense. I wanted to tell them that I didn't do it on purpose, but my tongue was swollen like a balloon, and I couldn't utter a single word. I remembered just moments ago, crouching in the corner of the attic, peering through a crack at the scene downstairs. My best friend Susan was stealthily pushing open my bedroom door. She picked up my wallet and carefully pulled out a piece of paper and a small notebook from inside. I held my breath and waited until the sound of her footsteps had completely faded before descending from the attic. The living room was so quiet that only the ticking of the wall clock remained. I walked straight to the refrigerator and opened the freezer compartment. 10 small golden mangoes were hidden deep inside. I take out the first one, tear off the skin, and start eating it in big bites. The sweet, syrupy juice bursts open in my mouth. I hold up the finished mango peel toward the surveillance camera in the living room. I took one bite after another until I had eaten the second, the third, and the fourth. My throat began to itch, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh. My tongue began to swell, and my breathing became rapid, the eighth, the ninth. My chest felt as if something was blocking it, and the air grew increasingly thin. Before I could swallow the last piece of mango, I pressed the emergency call button I had prepared earlier. Help! I lay on the ground, my consciousness beginning to fade. In the ICU, I was covered in tubes. The blinding fluorescent lights made it hard to open my eyes. A breathing tube in my throat kept me from speaking. The phone was vibrating frantically on the nightstand. In the loving family group chat, Mom's profile picture kept flashing as she sent out one anxious message after another. Linda, take a look at this quickly. What's going on here? She shared a live stream link. I clicked with a trembling finger. The screen showed a scene inside the airplane cabin, which was in complete chaos. A girl with a pink scarf, identical to mine, covering her face, was held at gunpoint by a hijacker. Her figure was almost exactly the same as mine. Dad, Mom, save me. The girl cried her heart out, her voice echoing through the cabin. I'm Linda, I don't want to die. As soon as I heard that voice, I knew it was Susan, but at this moment, she is clearly using my identity to call for help. There were no new messages in the group for a long time. I could imagine my parents desperately selling off assets to raise money. Trembling, I dialed my father's number, my voice hoarse and weak. Dad, I am in the hospital. 20 minutes later, my parents and fiancé George rushed to the ICU. Seeing my entire body swollen and my face unrecognizable, the three of them froze instantly. My mother covered her mouth, tears immediately welling up in her eyes. Linda, how did this happen to you? George rushed to the front, his face full of heartache and anxiety. He wanted to grab my swollen hand but was afraid of hurting me. Linda, what happened? I struggled to raise my hand. Pointing at the live stream playing on his phone, making hoarse sounds in my throat, the nurse came over and explained to them that I had nearly died from severe mango allergy-induced throat swelling. The patient knew they were allergic, yet they ate 10 mangoes in one go. The nurse's tone was reproachful. We almost couldn't save them. My parents stared at me in shock, their immense fear giving way to deep confusion. Dad asked in a trembling voice, "Linda, why did you do this?" I struggled to point at George's phone screen. On the live stream, the kidnapper was roaring at the camera, "This young lady's parents, I know you are the wealthiest, transfer 1 billion within an hour, otherwise, I'll kill your daughter." The father pointed at the live stream, "Since you're here, then who is on the plane?" At that moment, the satellite phone of the kidnapper in the live broadcast suddenly rang. After listening to the words from the other end, he violently tore off the pink scarf from the girl's face in front of him and roared in fury, "Who the hell are you?" Susan's terrified face was clearly displayed in front of the global audience. Mom and George saw Susan's face and instantly froze. Mom's eyes widened. This is Susan." George's expression darkened, and he clenched his fists. "Why is she pretending to be Linda?" Susan cried even more intensely in front of the camera. "No, I really am Linda. Who else could I be? Linda can be Linda, or she can be Susan's Linda." The kidnapper kicked Susan. "You still dare to lie? Linda is in the hospital right now. Do you think I'm a fool?" Susan was kicked to the ground, crying out in despair, "I don't want to die. I really don't want to die." I looked at the kidnapper in the live stream with a face full of shock. How does he know I'm in the hospital right now? My dad was trembling all over with anger. "Hank, your daughter has been kidnapped, and instead of trying to figure out what to do, why are you blaming my family?" On the other end of the phone, Susan's father let out a sharp, wailing cry. "Bob, my Linda only went to Paris because your daughter invited her. Now she's been kidnapped in your daughter's place. And your Lincoln family can't just ignore this. That ransom money should have been your responsibility from the start." Shameless. It really redefined my understanding of shamelessness. My father was so angry he felt dizzy, and my mother quickly supported him. On the live stream, Susan's performance continued. She was crying with pear blossoms bathed in rain, saying to the kidnapper, "Linda and I are the closest of sisters. Uncle Lincoln and Auntie treat me like their own daughter. They will definitely save me. They will." She lifted her face, her eyes brimming with tears as she looked into the camera. "Uncle, Auntie, I beg you, please save me. I don't want to die. George, please talk some sense into your parents. You don't want to see me die, do you?" I watched the drama unfolding on the screen with cold eyes. In my past life, I was just like this, desperately pleading for help from everyone while thousands of meters in the air. But all I got in return was Susan sharing the live stream link across the entire internet, allowing me to be slandered, cyberbullied, and ultimately brutally killed. This life, it's her turn. I was reveling in the thrill of revenge when I caught sight of George beside me out of the corner of my eye. He was staring intently at Susan, who was crying and screaming on the screen, and a flicker of pity crossed his face. Then, there was a panic, as if his plans had been disrupted. My heart sank heavily. He quickly noticed my gaze, his eyes flustered as they met mine. Then immediately tried to hide it. "Linda, your friend, she's really pitiful." He took my hand, his palm covered in a cold sweat. "After all, she took the hit for you. Maybe we should still save her. 10 billion isn't something your family can't come up with." I stared at him without saying a word. My fiancé, who is always composed and puts interests first in everything, at this moment, he would actually say such foolish words for an outsider. My mom also heard it. She frowned and pushed George's hand away. "George, are you crazy? Why should we save her?" My dad even snatched the phone and yelled at the kidnapper in the live stream, "Look carefully, that's not my daughter. You've got the wrong person. We don't have 1 billion, and we won't give a single cent. If you have the guts, go ask her own parents for it." As the words fell, on the live stream, Susan's face, which had been crying so pitifully, instantly turned as pale as paper. The kidnapper's gun pressed even deeper against her temple because of my father's words. I turned my head to see George's reaction. The room was empty, and he was no longer there. I abruptly pulled out the 4 needle from my hand. A sharp pain shot through me, and blood instantly gushed out. "Hey, miss, you can't get out of bed." I ignored the nurse's exclamation and rushed out. I staggered out of the ward. The corridor was empty. From the men's restroom at the end, faint, suppressed roars could be heard. Holding my breath, I inched my way closer. Through the crack in the door, I saw George's profile, distorted with anger. He tightly gripped his phone, roaring at the person on the other end of the line. we must protect the people on the plane. I silently returned to the hospital room, my parents' anxious eyes followed me, but I just spoke calmly, my voice not loud, yet enough to drown out Susan's wailing on the TV. Dad, use all of the Lincoln family's connections. My gaze returned to the live broadcast, where Susan was crying and shouting about the deep bond between us as sisters. Linda, I interrupted him, contact all media platforms. I want this live stream pinned at the top of the entire internet. I want everyone to see how my best friend impersonated me and boarded that plane. My father understood instantly. He didn't ask any more questions and immediately stepped aside to make a phone call, push the hype to the max. Soon, the exact same situation as in his previous life appeared once again, only this time, the main character was someone else. #Rich Besties Friendship turns out to be scripted. Hashtag my scheming best friend took my place on the flight. Hashtag Susan has only herself to blame. Hashtag Susan was completely placed on the public opinion's execution pyre. Countless voices were discussing her, calling her scheming, saying she deserved it, and that her death would be no loss. Yet some of her former music fans are still speaking up for her, unaware of what was happening online. Susan continued to cry out with all her might. Just then, George pushed the door open and entered. He saw my father continuously giving orders, his expression somewhat hesitant, but he couldn't say anything. He could only walk over to me and force out an approving smile. Linda, you did the right thing. I looked up, tears unexpectedly streaming down my face. George, am I a complete failure as a person? He froze. What is it about me that's so bad, that Susan would treat me this way? That performance opportunity in Paris, I worked so hard to win it fair and square. Why did she steal my flight information? Why did she pretend to be me? My sobs grew louder, each word sharp and accusatory, leaving George speechless. If she took all that, fine. But how could she also steal the birthday gift you were going to give me? As soon as the words were spoken in the live broadcast, the kidnapper roughly yanked Susan. Her slender wrist happened to be raised. On it was clearly the star and moon bracelet that George had personally told me was custom-made for me and one of a kind. At that moment, the air in the entire hospital room froze, the color drained completely from George's face. The look of concern my parents had just shown me instantly turned into sharp, piercing stares fixed firmly on George. George, how did that bracelet end up on Susan's wrist? My father's voice was like winter ice, striking directly at George's core. George's eyes darted nervously between me and the screen. Uncle, I don't know either, he stammered in defense. Maybe it was Susan, she took it herself. Yes, she must have stolen it. Stolen, my mother sneered, pressing forward step by step. Globally limited items haven't even reached Linda yet. Where could Susan have stolen them from? Or are you saying you already gave the gift to her? George was backed into a corner. What exactly is your relationship with Susan? The panic in his eyes was gradually replaced by a desperate madness. No, Auntie, the one I've always loved is Linda. He suddenly grabbed my hand with such force that it felt like he might crush my bones. Linda, you have to believe me, I have no relationship with her at all. The kidnappers must have made a mistake. The person they really meant to kidnap is Susan. Bang, my mind went completely blank. What did he just say? The person the kidnappers really wanted to kidnap was Susan. My father also caught the loophole in his words and pushed him away from me. What do you mean by that? How do you know who the kidnappers really intended to target? George suddenly realized what he had said, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. He turned his head and looked at me with a gaze that was almost pleading. Linda, Susan, she told me before that she really admired us, that she liked that bracelet a lot and just wanted to borrow it to wear for a bit, to take a photo. I thought she was your good friend, so I just wanted to make you happy. I really didn't know something like this would happen. I didn't say anything, I just looked at him, watching as he shifted all the blame onto Susan. Tears fell without warning. One by one, there was no sound, no sobbing, only silent sliding. This silent accusation was more powerful than any questioning. Seeing me cry, my father immediately snapped at George coldly. George, let go of my daughter. George let go as if he had been burned. Just then, a commotion suddenly erupted in the live stream. At that moment, the kidnapper finally saw the discussions among the netizens. Susan, seeing that she was getting no response from our family, also fell silent. The pressure from public opinion online made the kidnappers increasingly agitated. They began shoving the other hostages with their rifle butts, and the scene descended into chaos. one of the kidnappers suddenly lunged at Susan. Susan screamed and instinctively pushed a Chinese female passenger next to her toward the kidnapper. The woman staggered and collided with the gun barrel. This detail was captured clearly by the high-definition live broadcast camera, though it lasted only a second. It was seen by countless eyes. The live stream's bullet comments instantly froze. A few seconds later, they erupted overwhelmingly. Did she just push someone? Am I seeing things? She pushed the person next to her to use as a shield. Holy shit, is this the musical genius we've been feeling sorry for? Susan's fans also started unfollowing, one after another. I looked at my dad. He immediately understood and walked aside to make another phone call. Find out who that female passenger who was pushed is. Enlarge this video clip for me indefinitely. I want the entire internet to know what kind of good friend my dear daughter has made. Hashtag Susan pushes someone. Hashtag. This hashtag surged to the top of the trending list at a terrifying speed. George stared at the constantly refreshing messages on his phone, his expression dark and unreadable. He also said to us, "Uncle, Auntie, you're absolutely right to do this. A shameless woman like her should be made to understand what social death means." In the live stream, Susan was trembling with fear, while George wore a resolute and righteous expression. A stark contrast formed right before our eyes. The hijacking incident was quickly resolved with the swift intervention of Interpol. All the criminals were apprehended, and it turned out they had only brought one real gun. It was the same one that was pressed against my head last time. And Susan was also brought back to the country as a survivor and a hero. Under countless flashing lights, her face was pale, her eyes were red and swollen, looking as if she had been through a great ordeal. But instead of going to her parents who had come to pick her up, she immediately rushed toward the camera of the largest media outlet. "Where is Linda? Is Linda okay? We clearly agreed to go to Paris together. Why didn't I see her on the plane?" She faced the camera. Her voice choked with emotion, every word tinged with a sob. "When the kidnappers were taking people, I was so scared. I was afraid that if they couldn't find Linda, they would harm other innocent people. That's why I pretended to be her." She never mentioned the fact that she had taken my identity and boarded the plane pretending to be me. Instead, she turned the tables and insinuated that I was the one who fled at the last moment. And that it was she who had to step forward and sacrifice herself to protect everyone in the cabin. The online sentiment immediately became mixed. "So that's how it is." I was wondering how Susan could have impersonated someone. "She's truly remarkable. So is Linda too scared to come out? How ridiculous. Don't talk nonsense. The heiress must have other reasons. Come on, the facts are right in front of us. What's there to defend?" Susan used public opinion to contact the concert organizers who were originally supposed to work with me the very next day. At the same time, George came to my hospital bed once again. He brought a bouquet of lilies, his smile filled with exhaustion. "Linda, you've suffered so much. Don't pay attention to what's online. It's all nonsense." But he placed the flowers by the bedside and then changed the subject. "Susan really made a big sacrifice this time. Now everyone is praising her. Which actually doesn't reflect well on your reputation. How about letting her take the Paris performance this time? Consider it our compensation to her." I looked at him, at this man who kept saying he loved me. The air in the hospital room was terrifyingly still. My parents' faces had darkened to the point where they looked like they could drip water. I laughed instead. I looked at George and nodded with great magnanimity. "Okay, she deserves it." George visibly relaxed, and the smile on his face became much more genuine. "I always knew you were the most magnanimous and kindest, Linda." After he left, the smile on my face faded inch by inch. I picked up my phone and clicked on the video that had been forwarded by countless people and blurred by countless others. I found the clearest original clip. In the footage, Susan screamed in terror, then without hesitation, shoved a fellow panicked Chinese female passenger straight toward the gunman's barrel. The movements were crisp. Without a hint of hesitation, my father walked over to me with a meaningful expression on his face. That female passenger turned out to be the daughter of David, the sponsor of the Paris performance. She hit her head when Susan pushed her and fell unconscious shortly after returning home. She's still in the intensive care unit now. I remained silent and directly sent this unedited video to Mr. David's private email. For the email subject, I only wrote 4 words. "Your daughter." After doing all this, I turned off my phone and lay back in bed. For a whole week, I didn't read any news, until my attending physician walked into my hospital room with a complicated expression, holding a newspaper. The front page headline was about Susan. She was wearing exquisite makeup and a haute couture gown, standing on the stage of the Paris concert hall, radiating brilliance with her smile. The title is, Genius Girl Susan Plays Heavenly Music in Paris. The doctor placed the newspaper on my bedside and sighed, Linda, try to look on the bright side. I didn't speak. Just then, my phone rang, an unfamiliar French number. I answer. He was speaking in pure French. Miss Linda, I'm David. I just saw a very interesting video. Paris concert sponsor Mr. David holds emergency press conference, accusing heroine girl Susan of intentionally pushing someone. In the video, Mr. David's eyes are bloodshot, and his voice is hoarse. The woman beside him has already fainted from crying. My daughter is still lying in the intensive care unit, her fate uncertain, and the murderer who pushed her to take the bullet is on stage enjoying the glory that doesn't belong to her. Mr. David presented the unedited original video. In the footage, Susan's terrified face and her action of pushing the girl beside her without hesitation were magnified and frozen in time. Hashtag Susan pushes someone, hashtag Susan get out of the entertainment industry, hashtag David's daughter, hashtag. The entries spread like a virus, instantly dominating the charts. Public opinion completely reversed. One moment she was the heroine girl in heaven, the next she was cast into hell. I turned off the news and calmly took a photo of the 4 catheter in my arm, along with the critical condition notice that read, mango allergy, severe shock. I sent it out. The caption had only one sentence. Thank you for everyone's concern. I am still alive. No selling misery, no accusations. The so-called taking the fall for me, the so-called great sacrifice, has become a complete joke. The internet has completely collapsed. Angry netizens flooded Susan's social media platforms. Under all her previously glamorous selfies, vicious comments were now piled up. Murderer, get out of China, scheming bitch, taking advantage of others' kindness, you really deserve to die. I really must have been blind to have spoken up for you before. Immediately after, all of her past was completely exposed. The so-called socialite was nothing more than the daughter of an ordinary music classroom owner. All the so-called luxury goods were nothing but high-quality counterfeit replicas. Even her proud musical talent was exposed as having been paid for by a ghostwriter. The brands that once endorsed her immediately issued statements to terminate their contracts. Afraid to be associated with her in any way, on the outdoor billboards, the advertisements she endorsed were taken down overnight and replaced with promotions for infertility treatments. I was watching with great interest when George's call came in. His tone was casual, but I could tell he was doing his best to suppress his panic. I saw what happened online with your good friend. It didn't affect you, did it? After all, you two used to be so close. I didn't speak. On the other end of the line, he seemed to realize he had asked too much and quickly changed the subject. Linda, how have you been recovering lately? I let out a light laugh and hung up the phone. Then, I took a screenshot of a document and sent it to a familiar media outlet. Susan's contract signing with Green Group's entertainment company. The signing date was the day after the hijacking incident. Since George wants to protect her, I insist on making them die together. On the day the news broke, Green Group's stock price plummeted, losing billions in a single day. George was so overwhelmed by the company's shareholders that he no longer had time to care about his true love. I lay in the hospital bed, looking out the window. The sky was so blue. The phone rang again. It was Susan. I hung up directly and contacted someone else instead. I hosted a dinner party, late at night. Susan's family, George and his parents, as well as major media outlets, all arrived. Susan, wearing a white evening gown, immediately took my arm as she entered, her face showing just the right amount of timidity and gratitude. Linda, thank you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't know what to do. George's parents also came over. Aunt Green held my hand and spoke with deep sincerity. Good child, it's all in the past. George will treat you well from now on. I raised my glass and smiled gently and appropriately. Today, I've invited everyone here to thank the friends who stood by me during my most difficult times. My gaze fell upon Susan, especially my best friend, Susan. Susan then showed a deeply grateful smile. George also breathed a sigh of relief. The media's flashlights were focused on us. I set down my wine glass and took out a small, exquisite pen from my clutch. I've also prepared a special gift for Linda. I pressed the play button on the recording pen. Mom, don't worry. That fool Linda even told me that the concert tickets are on a reservation system. You only enter your personal information at the airport when you pick up the tickets. Susan's sharp and triumphant voice made sure everyone heard it clearly. The color drained from Susan's face, bit by bit. So what if she's the darling of heaven? She's foolish enough to leave such an important thing lying around on the table. Once we get to Paris, I'll take her place on stage, and all the glory will be mine. And George, I've already won him over. He told me himself that he loves me and doesn't even want to touch Linda, everything she has, her talent, her man, her family background. Soon, it will all be mine." In the recording, she laughed wildly, her laughter sharp and malicious. Slap, a sharp crack. George's father trembled with rage and slapped George hard across the face. "Idiot." George's mother slumped in her chair, pointing at Susan, unable to utter a word. Everyone's gaze was fixed on Susan without any attempt to conceal it. Susan's parents were experiencing such a mortifying scene for the first time. Their faces were ashen, and they wished they could vanish into the ground on the spot. As for Susan, she stood there in a daze, as if her soul had been drained away. In my previous life, because I was at home, she had no chance to take the plane ticket that belonged to me. But this time was different. I had made all the preparations in advance. In this life, under her terrified gaze, I walked step by step toward her, bent down, and leaned close to her ear. In a voice only the two of us could hear, I said with a smile, "Linda, you really are my best friend." Then, I straightened up, under the astonished gazes of everyone. He picked up the glass of crimson red wine from the table. He flung it fiercely at her pale face. You think you're worthy, ah." Susan completely broke down and began to scream hysterically. The wine trickled down her hair, the red wine and white dress making her appear utterly disheveled. The banquet hall erupted into chaos. Reporters surged forward frantically, the camera flashes nearly blinding everyone. The day after the banquet, the Green Group's public relations statement was everywhere. Between the lines, "There is nothing but regret for misjudging someone and profound apologies for the grievances my family has suffered." They intensified their condemnation, harshly criticizing Susan for her improper conduct and for betraying the Green family's trust. In the end, they directly announced the complete termination of the engagement with my family and the cancellation of the contract with Susan. The Green family cut ties with everyone, leaving themselves completely untainted. Uncle Green is a clever man. Between the reputation of the Green family and his son, he will always choose the former, according to the news. George was packed up by his father overnight and kicked out of the Green family mansion. All his bank cards were frozen, and his assets were cleared out. The former eldest son of the Green family was left with nothing overnight. I have no interest in knowing his fate. As for Susan, she called me countless times. I never answered once. She then kept trying with different unfamiliar numbers, persistently, like a fly that just won't go away, until a text message came in. "Linda, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Everything was because I was blinded by greed. My mom had a heart attack and needs money for the hospital. Please, for the sake of our past relationship, help me. George isn't a good person either. I was completely deceived by him. Aren't you supposed to be the kindest?" I looked at that text message and laughed. Then I dragged all her contact information into the blacklist. The world is quiet now. A few days later, while I was flipping through the sheet music, an unknown number sent me a photo. In the photo, Susan's mother was lying in a hospital bed, with an oxygen tube inserted, looking haggard. Immediately after, another text message followed. "Linda, Auntie knows Susan wronged you, but she was also deceived by George. He ruined her. Please, for the sake of Auntie who is not long for this world, save her." It's the same old story. It's always someone else's fault, always pretending to be the victim. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then, along with a screenshot of the text message, it was sent to a blogger who specializes in exposing fraudulent charities. "Hello, someone is using patient photos to scam people. Could you please verify this?" A few days later, the invitation to the Paris Music Hall was delivered to me once again. This time, it truly belonged to me. I stand at the center of the stage, with the spotlight shining on me, and the audience seats are completely filled. This time, I have finally fulfilled my wish to showcase my abilities in the place I have always dreamed of. As the final note fades away, the entire room fell silent. The entire venue erupts, with applause rising and falling in waves. Everyone excitedly clapped their hands until they turned red. I slowly stood up, faced the audience and the globally live-streamed camera, lifted the hem of my dress, and bowed gracefully. This piece is dedicated to my once best friend, and my fiancé. What is mine will always be mine, no matter how many imposters come along, they can never take it away. My parents, sitting in the front row, had tears of excitement in their eyes as they looked at me with pride. After the performance, I returned backstage. Flowers filled the entire dressing room, but I was still trying to calm my excited heart. Just then, a figure pushed through the crowd and rushed toward me like a madman. It was George. At that moment, his expensive suit was crumpled, his hair greasy, and his eyes bloodshot. He looked like a stray dog. He grabbed my arm with a terrifying strength. "Linda, why are you treating me like this? Everything I've done is for our future, to be worthy of you, to gain your family's support," he roared, spittle spraying onto my face. I frowned in disgust and shook off his hand. The people around tried to pull him away, but I raised my hand to stop them. This play should come to an end. Seeing that I didn't react, George's eyes grew even more frenzied. Suddenly, he put on a deeply affectionate expression and tried to move closer to me. "Linda, I love you. Everything I've done is because I love you too much. Susan is just a pawn. I haven't even touched her. Every time you meet with me, you act like a wooden puppet. I only used her to test you. There's really nothing between us. I need the power and influence of the Green family. I need to climb higher, so we can be together forever. And no one can tear us apart." He began to ramble incoherently, but the greedy and sickly look in his eyes couldn't be faked. I watched him quietly, as if observing a clown performing a ridiculous act. In my previous life, my poor parents were likely deceived by him as well. I was gradually falling for the beautiful facade he had created, until this time, I escaped the peril high up in the sky. Only then did I realize how terribly wrong I had been. I looked at the distorted face before me and spoke calmly. "In my previous life, I believed in the future you described, so, on the plane to Paris, I was betrayed." The expression on George's face instantly froze. The color drained completely from his face, leaving only incomprehensible fear. I took a step forward, leaning in close to him, my voice so soft that only he could hear. "But this time, you might have to put in some effort to explain things clearly to the police. Why did the kidnapper on the plane, after just one phone call, realize he had taken the wrong person, and how did they know so precisely which flight I would be on? I only told my parents about the news that I got the performance qualification, and you, no, it can't be." His whole body trembled, shaking like a sieve, as he stepped back step by step, finally collapsing to the ground. I didn't look at him again and turned to walk out the door. Not far away, my parents were waiting for me. The worry in their eyes vanished, replaced by overwhelming pride. I deleted all my social media accounts and turned down every interview request. Life is now only black and white piano keys. A few months later, at the Vienna Golden Hall, I won the gold medal in the international piano competition. On the flight back home, I was flipping through the newspaper in my hands. In a corner of a social news section, a familiar profile was published. "The high-altitude hijacking case has hidden circumstances. The mastermind has been apprehended, suspected to be a crime of passion." In the photo, George was handcuffed, his face ashen as he was escorted away, disheveled and dejected. There was not a trace of the former Green family heir's high spirits. I folded the newspaper and casually tossed it into the trash can. Later, on a boring late night, I was scrolling through a live streaming app, in a group live stream with very few viewers. Intermittent violin sounds could be heard. It was played poorly, completely out of tune. The host awkwardly explained, "Our violin accompanist teacher isn't feeling well today, so please bear with us." The camera unintentionally swept across the corner. A young girl in cheap performance attire was playing the violin backstage. Her face filled with an overwhelming sense of inferiority and numbness. She didn't dare to look up or show her face, but I recognized her. Listening to that familiar, halting rhythm, I suddenly smiled. That piece was the opening she played when she took my place. Now, it has become the background music of her eternal downfall. I turn off my phone, fingertips on the keys, slowly flowing out a bright and brilliant melody. In this lifetime, I personally buried my own hell and broke free from all shackles. Ding, the phone screen lights up, and a new message pops up, from an unknown number. "Final payment received." The smile on my lips deepened, the sound of the piano soared, and the sunlight outside the window was just right. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. Before the college entrance exam, I saw a female classmate being harassed by a thug. I saved her and even helped her report it to the police, but the next day, she brought the police to the classroom to identify me. She claimed that I was the harasser and that the thug was innocent. I was taken away by the police and labeled as a harasser by the world. I lost my guaranteed admission to Peking University. I was also exposed by a classmate's post with false accusations and was expelled from school. As a last resort, my mother left a blood-written letter and chose to live stream her suicide by jumping off a building at the school, using her death to prove my innocence. Under public pressure and due to insufficient evidence, I was finally released, but my life has already been ruined. I can't go to college, and I've lost my only family member. I found my female classmate and confronted her, asking why she would repay kindness with enmity. She said that the troublemaker is the son of the richest person in the county, and she couldn't afford to offend him. I still want to study hard and get into a good university. I can't afford to cause trouble. Besides, you were the one who came to save me on your own. I never asked for your help. Who told you to meddle in other people's business? As soon as the words were spoken, the little punk swaggered out from the corner, wrapped his arm around the female classmate, and gave her a hard kiss. Even if you get into university, so what? You'll just end up as a corporate slave working 996 for my family's company, won't you? Isn't it nice to be a young lady who can enjoy life without lifting a finger? Watching my female classmate's shy expression, I felt the world spinning around me. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day I saw my female classmate being harassed. This time, I chose to turn a blind eye to what was happening outside. Let go of me. Let go of me right now. If you don't let go of me, I'm going to scream for help. In my daze, I heard a woman's cry for help and looked over in surprise. In the dimly lit alley, a person with dyed yellow hair was harassing and molesting a woman in a school uniform. This scene feels intensely familiar. I looked down at the school uniform I was wearing, then observed everything happening in the alley. After a moment of daze, I bit myself. I've been reborn. I have been reborn. Reborn at a critical juncture of fate. The crime unfolding in the alley flooded my mind with memories. In my previous life, when I encountered injustice, I casually picked up a stick and stepped forward to help Sarah, who was being assaulted. After I struck the blonde-haired guy several times on the head and face, he pulled up his pants and scurried away, quickly escaping, but Sarah collapsed on the ground, crying and saying she was ruined. I took off my coat to cover her disheveled clothes and comforted her, telling her that none of this was her fault. She was just a victim. I encouraged her to face everything bravely. With my encouragement, she decided to call the police. Afterward, I accompanied her to the police station to give a witness statement. When I got home, I told my mom that I had done a good deed by standing up for what was right. My mom was very happy at the time and even praised me. Yet I never expected that one act of bravery would push my entire family into the abyss. The next morning, I was attending class as usual when Sarah suddenly rushed into the classroom with the police and, in front of everyone, claimed that I was the one who committed the crime yesterday. She said that after the assault, I returned to retrieve the clothes I had left behind and happened to overhear the emergency call. Then, I threatened to kill her entire family. Sarah was crying, her face streaked with tears, saying that at the time she had no choice but to agree for the safety of her family. She pointed at me and cried out loudly, "He's not a witness, he's actually the one who harassed me." My head was buzzing. In shock, the police came forward, handcuffed me, and took me away from the classroom. I snapped back to reality and struggled desperately, saying, "I'm innocent, why are you framing me? I was the one who saved you." But she cried and said, no girl would joke about her own innocence. Everyone believed her. I was accused of indecency, and everyone was calling me a criminal. My classmates treated the incident as shocking gossip and posted it online. Soon, it sparked a trending topic. I became the target of keyboard warriors' attacks. They scold me for being unworthy of being human, telling me why don't I just die. The rumors grew bigger and more outrageous. They started spreading rumors and insulting my mother. They called her a bitch, saying my birth was the result of her entertaining clients. Under public pressure, the school expelled me to settle the matter quietly. I also lost the hard-earned opportunity for direct admission to Peking University. When everyone was pointing fingers at me, my mother was the only person in the world who believed in me. To prove my innocence, she stormed into the school's live broadcast with a blood-written plea and then jumped from a tall building in front of the entire internet. She proved my innocence with her death. This live broadcast of death brought even greater attention. Public opinion began to shift, and rational observers started to question the truth of the matter. Analyzing Sarah's one-sided account word by word, under immense public pressure, the police repeatedly investigated and finally released me on the grounds of insufficient evidence. But what good did it do? I lost my guaranteed admission and my only family member. No matter where I go, there will always be people pointing at me and saying, "That's the rapist." They say I was released because I pulled some strings. I have no education, no job, and no family left. I linger on in the house where my mother is no longer. I wander the streets in a daze, picking plastic bottles out of trash cans, barely scraping by on the meager income from selling recyclables, living like a walking corpse, until one day I met Sarah. She was completely transformed. She had permed her hair, sprayed on perfume, and was dressed in designer clothes, carrying a bag that seemed quite expensive. She was back. After the public opinion exploded, she disappeared. When the heat from the rape case faded, she reappeared. My heart instantly returned to its normal rhythm. I dropped the bottle in my hand and rushed over like a madman, demanding to know why she would repay kindness with enmity. She took several steps back, covering her nose with a look of disgust, and turned to leave. I stopped her and questioned her repeatedly. She grew impatient and shouted in desperation, "Do you know that the one who harassed me was the son of the richest man in our county?" I couldn't afford to offend him, I nearly roared. "And what about me? Am I just supposed to be framed by you and lose everything?" she said with righteous indignation. "I still want to study hard and get into a good university. I can't afford to cause trouble. Besides, you were the one who came to save me. I never asked you to rescue me. Who told you to meddle in other people's business?" As soon as the words fell, the thug suddenly walked over from behind with a smug expression, put his arm around Sarah, and gave her a hard kiss. "Even if you get into university, so what? You'll still end up as a corporate slave working 996 for my family's company, won't you? Isn't it good to be a young mistress who can enjoy life just by lying down?" Sarah looked shy and playfully punched the little ruffian. What else is unclear? My head spun, and I suddenly fell to the ground. The back of my head hit the ground hard. When I woke up again, I had returned to this moment. I glanced at the two people in the alley, then I turned and walked away. Behind me, faint calls seemed to be echoing. But what does that have to do with me? I returned home, while changing my shoes. Mom came out holding a spatula to welcome me. "Our little genius is back. Today, I made your favorite braised noodles with green beans and ribs. Go wash your hands and get ready to eat." In my previous life, Mom fought to prove my innocence, not hesitating to use her own death to create a buzz across the internet. At that time, I was detained and didn't even get to see her one last time. My mother was my last remaining family. When I was very young, my father passed away due to an accident. To take care of me, my mother worked several jobs all by herself. She left early in the morning and returned late at night. Before she even turned 50, gray hair had already begun to appear at her temples. Looking at my mother's smiling face, I thought of what had happened in my past life, and tears uncontrollably streamed down my face. Mother looked worried and quickly held my shoulders, asking, "Xiao Ming, did someone bully you? Tell me, and I'll go settle the score for you." I wiped the tears from the corner of my eye, smiled, and shook my head. "No one bullied me. I was just so happy thinking about how I can get into Peking University without taking the entrance exam and take you to the capital to enjoy life." Mother smiled and said, "That's because my son is amazing. Yes, my greatest wish in this life is to grow up quickly so that I can let my mother enjoy a good life. In my previous life, this wish should have been fulfilled early on. I was admitted to Peking University without taking the entrance exam, with not only full tuition exemption but also a full scholarship. This would greatly ease my mother's burden. After graduation, with my degree, I can always get into a big company and earn a salary. Then, I'll be able to let my mother, who has suffered for most of her life, finally rest. But a thankless, ungrateful person ruined me and destroyed my family. My once bright future has turned completely dark, in this life. I will never meddle in others' affairs again." But I was thinking too simply. Early the next morning, I arrived at school. Sarah suddenly stormed up to me, her eyes red, and demanded, "Why didn't you help when you saw someone in trouble yesterday?" What a lunatic, I cursed under my breath. "Why, out of all the people passing by yesterday, did you have to fixate on me alone?" I pretended not to know. "What are you talking about? Yesterday afternoon after school, you could have saved me. But you chose to ignore it. How could you be so selfish?" Sarah spoke very loudly, and the students around who were still reviewing looked up and turned their attention to her. They all looked like they were eager to witness some drama. I kept my head down, working on my problems, with no intention of engaging with her. Seeing this, Sarah snatched the test paper from my hands and immediately tore it to shreds, instantly enraged. I stood up and slapped Sarah. Sarah was stunned by that slap, clutching her reddened cheek as her whole body trembled. "How dare you hit me, Frank? How dare you hit me?" Sarah grabbed my collar and shook me, screaming like a madwoman. "Are you feeling guilty because you're the thief? Did that person give you money to turn a blind eye to me, or are you just in cahoots with them?" I pushed her hand away and slapped her other cheek, showing not an ounce of tenderness or pity. "If you're sick, go get treatment. What nonsense are you spouting? I don't understand a word of it." Sarah covered her face, grabbed her hair, looking as if she had just walked out of a mental institution. Frank, you've ruined the rest of my life, damn you, why don't you just drop dead?" she screamed with all her might. Sarah's voice was so loud it made my eardrums ache. I sneered, "What nonsense are you talking? Your business is none of my damn concern. In my past life, you were the one who truly destroyed my future, if it weren't for your vanity and ingratitude. How could my life have been plunged into darkness? How could my mother have chosen death to prove her innocence?" I recall the events of my previous life and feel no pity for Sarah's current pitiful state. Instead, I feel like laughing. Sarah wanted to fight with me, but unfortunately, her strength was nothing in my eyes. Fortunately, before the situation escalated, the homeroom teacher came over. The homeroom teacher said with a fierce tone, "The college entrance exam is just around the corner. What are you all still doing here? Hurry up and go review." The homeroom teacher was a middle-aged woman, not very tall, but she had an imposing presence. In just a few sentences, she made the group of onlookers scatter in an instant. She accused her classmates of being inconsiderate, wasting the limited time left before the college entrance exams. She also told them to learn from me. One of the troublemakers in the class wasn't happy about it and pointed in my direction, saying, "This whole mess was caused by Frank, homeroom teacher, don't you dare cover for him." The homeroom teacher raised an eyebrow, walked over to me, and glanced at me and Sarah. She didn't ask what had happened to us. Instead, she directly sent us to the office. I didn't feel any resentment toward the homeroom teacher's attitude. In fact, I was quite obedient. After all, in my previous life, she was the only one who stepped forward to persuade my mother to come down from the rooftop, and she posted the blood letter written by my mother online. As the online buzz continued to grow, she also began searching for evidence to prove my innocence. Sarah threw a tantrum and shouted, "You old hag, you must be trying to cover up for that beast Frank. Look at him getting into Peking University. It must make you look good. You deliberately called us to the office just to cover for him." Those who had issues with me in the class, after seeing Sarah in this state, looked at me with sympathy and a hint of mockery. How could I run into such a lunatic? The homeroom teacher frowned deeply. "Sarah, I won't cover for Frank just because he has good grades. If he did something wrong, I would still punish him." Sarah pointed to the slap mark on her face and said, "He slapped me twice in a row." A grown man slapping a defenseless girl twice. Do you have any idea how much that hurt me? I didn't deny it, but instead retorted, "When you were tearing up my books, you didn't look like a delicate girl at all." The homeroom teacher looked at the mess on the floor, then glanced at the slap mark on Sarah's face, and said sternly to both of us, "Go to the office." The homeroom teacher exudes such an imposing aura that even though I've lived a second life, I still don't dare to meet her gaze. No wonder so many people are afraid of her, but she quickly managed to subdue Sarah as well. Sarah shot me a glare and stormed out of the classroom angrily. Office, I explained the whole situation to Sarah. The homeroom teacher gave me a puzzled look and said, "Frank, when you encounter a classmate in need, you should help." "Never mind, I can't morally pressure you. But at the very least, you should have called the police." Seeing that the homeroom teacher was on her side, Sarah became smug and said, "My life is ruined, and it's all your fault." I shrugged and said, "But teacher, I really didn't hear anything yesterday. How can I help with something I didn't hear or see?" And look at Sarah's attitude. I even suspect that if we save her, she might turn around and blame me, saying I rescued her too late, or even slander me outright. Sarah immediately flared up, "You beast, do you think I'm as inhuman as you? You're more than just inhuman. Putting you on the same level as a beast is a compliment, in my opinion." Of course, I only muttered this to myself and didn't say it out loud. The homeroom teacher looked directly into Sarah's eyes. "In that case, let's call the police." "Call the police?" "No." Sarah became nervous. "If we call the police, won't my life be ruined? Who will pay for my innocence?" "Naturally. It's the person who assaulted you. You're not the one who committed the crime." The homeroom teacher spoke very decisively. After all, she has been teaching in this small county for many years. She has encountered countless situations and is particularly adept at handling this kind of issue. Sarah avoided eye contact and didn't dare to speak. I agreed with the homeroom teacher's suggestion. The teacher is right. I think we should just call the police. Whoever is guilty should be arrested and punished. Sarah was somewhat reluctant, but things had already reached this point. If she didn't report it to the police, there might be even more rumors and gossip about her in the future. That's just how it is in a small town. The victims are women, in the end. Those who are often blamed also include the victimized women, who said she is not a saint, who said she has flaws, who said she is not a moral exemplar, a living saint. All right. Sarah weakly agreed to the suggestion of calling the police. Sarah and I got into the homeroom teacher's car and arrived at the police station. After explaining the situation, the police immediately arranged for personnel to start an investigation. None of this had anything to do with me in the first place. I wasn't even a bystander. After a brief understanding, the police let me go back first. Sarah was very unhappy about this. She grabbed the police officer's sleeve and sharply questioned, "Officer, how can that scumbag Frank, who ruined my future, possibly be innocent? Are you trying to protect him just because he has good grades?" The police officer was left speechless by Sarah. Upholding his professional integrity, he did not directly shake off her hand, just calmly saying, "Classmate Frank did not commit any crime. He was just passing by and didn't even notice that you were being assaulted." Sarah interrupted him, insisting firmly, "This person must be pretending. When I was screaming for help, I saw him turn his head toward me. He definitely knew I was in danger and being assaulted. He deliberately chose not to save me." Interrupted repeatedly by Sarah and faced with her hostile attitude, the police officer's face darkened completely. "Let's not even discuss whether he actually saw anything at the time. Even if he did, the law does not explicitly state that failing to act bravely is a crime. If the thug who assaults you is armed and he chooses to save you, he would also be in danger. The best approach is to call the police immediately, shout from a distance, and first try to intimidate the criminal to stop the crime. Of course, there's a major prerequisite here, which is that he has to see it happening. Whether he sees it or not isn't for you to decide." The police officer's expression was quite indescribable. Maybe he was thinking the same thing as me. When encountering someone like Sarah, not saving them is the best choice, not getting the desired outcome. Sarah lay on the ground and started whimpering again. "You're just bullying me because I'm a woman. Frank is at fault for not saving me. My whole future is ruined. He has to compensate me. He has to take responsibility for me. She looks like a wild boar rolling around in the mud right now." The officer's face darkened further as he warned, "Student, this is a police station, not a marketplace. Even though you are the victim, if you continue to be this unreasonable, we have the right to detain you. This is your first warning." As he spoke, his hand moved to the handcuffs at his waist. Sarah jolted awake, quickly scrambled up from the ground, and began to sob quietly. She was gasping for air as if she were about to suffocate. The police officer sighed, "We won't let any criminals escape justice. You will get the outcome you deserve." I could barely suppress the smile on my face. Seeing this woman suffer was just too satisfying. Afterwards, Sarah stayed at the police station, responsible for providing clues to apprehend the criminal. I rode back to school in the homeroom teacher's car. As I got out of the car, the homeroom teacher said to me earnestly, "Frank, even though you've been recommended for admission to Peking University, you still can't afford to let your guard down. Entering university doesn't mean you can rest. In a completely new environment, there will be plenty of geniuses more talented than you. Don't let such a small thing affect you, understand?" The homeroom teacher's words were sharp, but they were genuinely out of concern for me. I nodded earnestly and replied, "I understand." I returned to school and continued with my classes. I thought this matter would come to a temporary end, but the next day, she actually brought the police to the classroom again and identified me. "It seems like things have returned to square one. It's him, the one who harassed me in the alley a couple of days ago. He even threatened me not to tell the truth, or he would kill my entire family." As she spoke, Sarah wore a tearful expression, as if she had suffered a great injustice, just like the scene from the previous life. The classmates immediately burst into an uproar. Students from the neighboring class were also gathered at the door, peeking in and whispering among themselves, "Could the top student really have harassed Sarah? Was that why she came to see Frank yesterday? I heard the homeroom teacher took them to the police station yesterday. Was it for this matter? Frank harassing someone? That's the funniest thing I've heard all year." People in the class were talking among themselves, but there was something different, compared to the previous life. There were already those in the crowd who did not believe her words. After all, what happened yesterday was witnessed by everyone, and I will never be so frightened that I can't refute, allowing Sarah to spread rumors and slander me like in my previous life. But one of the young police officers who accompanied them approached my desk with a cold expression, showed his badge, and said to me, "Frank, you are suspected of being involved in a molestation case. Please come with us." With that, he actually took out handcuffs and tried to cuff me. I frowned. This attitude was not right. "Stop!" Before I could dodge and question, a loud shout came from the doorway. It was the homeroom teacher who had gotten the news. She ran to the door, still panting heavily. It seemed as if she had rushed all the way up the stairs. before even catching his breath, he asked with a serious expression, "Which police station are you from?" "I was the one who took my students to the station to file the report yesterday, and it was already confirmed that Frank had nothing to do with the matter. Why are you here today making unnecessary trouble?" As he spoke, he glanced at Sarah beside him, his eyes filled with accusation. Sarah avoided his gaze, looking very guilty, having been a homeroom teacher for 30 years. When he got serious, both current and former students couldn't help but feel intimidated. The police's imposing demeanor immediately weakened by half, and their voice grew much softer. "After repeated investigations, we have confirmed that the person who likely committed the act of molestation is Frank." Seeing the homeroom teacher frown and about to explode in anger, they quickly added, "Of course, he is only a suspect and has not been proven guilty, so we need Frank to come to the police station to assist with the investigation." The homeroom teacher, however, did not give them any face and said coldly, "Nonsense, wasn't the truth already clear yesterday? How can you change your orders so capriciously? And another thing, you just said you were cooperating with the investigation, right? If that's the case, why are you putting handcuffs on him? Even though he's an adult, he's still a student, without an arrest warrant or any evidence. What gives you the right to handcuff my student? Do you have any idea how much damage this could do to his reputation and mental state? This is a school, the foundation of our nation's future, not a place where you can act recklessly." The police officer was immediately left speechless. Another older police officer stepped forward, smiling as he tried to smooth things over. "Indeed, we may not have considered this thoroughly enough. However, this is a criminal case, and it's a serious matter, even if we don't use handcuffs. Frank still has to come back with us. Teacher, please do not interfere with the police's handling of the case, otherwise." His words were firm, yet delivered with a soft tone. At first glance, it sounded reasonable and well-founded. The homeroom teacher found it difficult to refute for the moment. I stood up and thanked the homeroom teacher for speaking up on my behalf. I then turned to the two police officers and said, "I can go with you, but we were the ones who reported the case yesterday. And at that time, an officer named James was responsible for handling the investigation. If you want me to cooperate with your investigation now, that's fine, but I must request that Officer James be the one in charge of the inquiry." The younger officer frowned and said, "Frank, as a suspect now, you have no right to make demands. Cut the bureaucratic talk. Our classmate Frank is merely cooperating with the investigation, and he has the right to make requests. Who are your parents? And what are their names? Tell me, let's see if I know them or not." The homeroom teacher immediately became angry, standing between me and the police officer, glaring at the young policeman. She wasn't very tall, but in my eyes, she was the most magnificent giant besides my mother. The older police officer quickly explained with a smile, "This teacher, your student is only a suspect for now. Once the investigation is cleared up and the suspicion is lifted, everything will be fine." "If there is no suspicion, how can it be cleared? The matter was thoroughly investigated yesterday. Are you trying to call a stag a horse?" The older policeman's face turned cold, and his hand moved to the handcuffs at his waist. "Sir, are you sure you want to obstruct official duties? This is not obstruction, it's stopping you from acting recklessly." Seeing that the situation was about to reach a deadlock, I quickly interjected. "I said I would cooperate, but I only raised reasonable demands." "Why are you so insistent on refusing? Yesterday, when Sarah came to my place and caused a scene, she already explained the whole situation. The entire class can testify for me, yet, without any evidence, you insist on labeling me as the suspect. Could it be that you and she know each other? I am a student, and I am still young. Whatever immature things I say can be understood." The students began to clamor. Some of the bolder, more reckless ones started talking about what happened yesterday. "That's right, we can testify." Seeing the situation getting out of control, Sarah burst into tears with a loud wail. "Teacher, I'm the victim. The police are already here. Why are you still siding with Frank?" I mustered up my courage and spoke out about the fact that I was sexually harassed in front of everyone. "Teacher, you are also a woman. Would you joke about your own innocence? Is this something to joke about?" Sarah's words immediately resonated with others. Many of the students watching from outside the classroom nodded in agreement. In this small town, most people's minds are far less open than those in big cities. Sarah is usually quite well behaved. Now that she is staking her innocence on this, many people instinctively believe her words. Could it be that Frank really did it? He's a top student, a guaranteed admission student. Under a lot of psychological pressure, it's not impossible that he thought about harassing someone to relieve stress. Haha, Maybe he's watched too many adult films and got carried away by his hormones. But then, what about Sarah looking for Frank yesterday? That doesn't make sense. If you were a girl, would you joke about your own reputation? One after another, voices of doubt echoed in my ears. Memories of being slandered involuntarily flashed through my mind, in my past life. Sarah also cried and complained in the same way. At that time, the vast majority of people had already convicted me without hearing my side. At that time, I argued back with a hoarse voice, but the response I received made me feel as if I had fallen into an ice cellar. No woman would joke about her own innocence, right? Sarah isn't crazy. Why would she go out of her way to slander you? Hurting the enemy 1,000 while damaging herself 800, she's not that foolish, oh my God. There's a rapist in our class. The mocking and disdainful gazes of the onlookers were like sharp blades piercing through flesh, striking deep into my heart and lungs. It made my heart almost stop beating, my hands and feet turned cold, and my entire body felt weak and pale. Finally, in the chaos, I was handcuffed by the police and taken away with great fanfare, just like prisoners being paraded through the streets in ancient times. I was also watched and pointed at by the entire school, but now, unlike in my previous life, I wasn't panicked. On the contrary, I was surprisingly calm. Seeing the students take her side, a flash of triumph crossed Sarah's face. You damn molester, you will definitely be punished. Jail time and compensation. Not a single one will be spared. Compensation. Ah, the truth is finally revealed. In my previous life, after I was detained, she made an exorbitant demand, asking me for $300,000 in compensation, but where would my family get that kind of money? That $300,000 was the final straw that drove my mother to prove her innocence by taking her own life. I stared at Sarah, wishing I could tear her flesh from her bones, and coldly retorted, "You wouldn't joke about your innocence, but do you think I would? As someone aiming for a top university, why would I risk my future like that?" Sarah sneered in response, "Who knows why you did such a wicked thing? The fact is, you did it. Who's to say you're not just jealous of me and trying to slander me? I could just as easily say that you're the one who fabricated this story." I pressed further, "Can you provide any evidence to prove that what you're saying is true?" I will no longer allow myself to fall into the trap of self-justification. If proof is needed, let Sarah provide it herself. Sarah was already guilty at heart and flustered in her response. "I'm a girl. A girl values her innocence more than anything in life. What would I gain by slandering you?" I sneered. "Perhaps the real molester threatened you into giving false testimony. Perhaps you discovered his family's immense influence and thought that even if you were harassed, you could use the opportunity to climb the social ladder. You want to frame me to close the case. I'm just the scapegoat you've chosen. Perhaps you even want to extort me and get a hefty compensation out of it." Only Sarah and I knew that everything I said was true. Sarah, her thoughts exposed, flushed bright red. "You're slandering me." I spread my hands and said, "Please provide the evidence that I have slandered you. Since you are accusing me of a crime without any proof, then I am guilty. Then if I accuse you of slandering me without any proof, you must be slandering me too." She could never produce any evidence. After all, Sarah's initial plan was to frame me and send me to prison, making me the scapegoat to close the case. My calm and composed demeanor influenced the surrounding classmates. Could it really be, as Frank said, that Sarah is framing him? But who would joke about their own innocence? Frank has already been recommended for admission to Peking University, and he wouldn't risk his future like that. Both sides are sticking to their own stories. Compared to my previous life, the treatment I'm receiving now is simply much better. At least, public opinion isn't one-sided anymore. Sarah was speechless and could only sob. I then turned to the police officers. "Comrades, the truth of the matter is clear to some. If anyone tries to act recklessly and falsely accuse me, I believe my school and teachers will not stand by idly. Let's go. I'll come back with you to give my statement. What I said earlier wasn't meant to prove my innocence to the police. These two people probably have some connection with that troublemaker's family. But I can't let the bystander students stand on Sarah's side without knowing the truth." In my previous life, my tragic experiences were not solely Sarah's doing. There were also the bystander students. They are at an age of passion, and for the justice they believe in, they can charge forward without hesitation. At that time, my hesitant and careless words were seen as a guilty conscience. Sarah's crocodile tears were perceived as deep-seated grievances. So, in the name of upholding so-called justice, they posted my sins online. Then, it ignited public opinion, making me the target of everyone's condemnation. If I continued to let Sarah slander me, foolishly believing that the truth will prevail on its own and do nothing, then the cyberbullying situation from my previous life will still occur. It has been proven that my actions are very effective. The students looked at my righteous and upright expression and began to whisper among themselves, I don't think Frank is the culprit, at the very least. I've never seen a student who dares to act so confidently after committing a crime. This Sarah is accusing him of a crime without any proof, and she can't even produce any evidence. Besides, it seems to me that she looks a little guilty herself, but a girl's innocence isn't something to joke about either. Normal people certainly wouldn't, but what if she's not normal? What if she's a bad apple? There's always a small handful of shameless people in this world who would trade their integrity for money. In some people's eyes, integrity is the least valuable thing. Parentheses, I'm not just referring to women when I say some people, don't label me, end parentheses. Some girls still sided with Sarah, but after arguing with those around them for a few sentences, they fell silent. Now, they didn't dare to confidently accuse me anymore. After listening carefully for a few moments, I breathed a sigh of relief. The school, as the origin of this public opinion, has been somewhat controlled. Sarah, on the other hand, was so angry that her teeth were chattering, and she could hardly keep up her fake crying. She brought the police here with great fanfare, all the better to slander me, but now, her reputation has subtly worsened instead. I approached the police officer. Didn't you say I need to cooperate with the investigation? Officer, let's go. Uncle officer, you have to handle the case fairly, or I'll expose you. That's right, I'm going to live stream and keep an eye on the case progress at all times. From the back of the crowd, some reckless but self-righteous and passionate students made way. Yes, that's right, we want to see the truth. Amid the clamor, the two police officers lost the arrogance they had shown earlier. The principal and the dean of students, having received the news, finally rushed to the scene. They addressed the two police officers, demanding a fair investigation and stating that they would closely monitor the matter. In my previous life, I was quickly taken away. The school didn't have time to intervene before the public opinion exploded on the hot search. Under the pressure of public opinion, they ultimately had no choice but to settle the matter quietly. I became the wrist that had to be severed for the greater good. In this life, it seems everything is different. I felt like a triumphant general returning to court, holding my head high as I got into the police car. Before getting in, I waved to the classmates watching behind me. I'll be back. Wait for me to clear my name and return victorious. Behind me, a chorus of wild cheers erupted. Two police officers plus Sarah. Their faces instantly turned darker than the bottom of a pot. As soon as I arrived at the police station, I saw that young man with dyed yellow hair chatting happily with an older police officer. I would recognize him even if he turned to ashes. He is the one who sexually harassed Sarah. Kevin. Hearing the noise, Kevin turned around and looked at me with a mocking expression. Oh, so the culprit has been found. I couldn't be bothered to respond to him. Instead, he became even more arrogant. Oh, why isn't the culprit saying anything? Feeling guilty, are we? I glanced at him. The convict is barking like a dog. Kevin immediately flew into a rage, pointing at my nose and threatening, how dare you say that again, you motherfucker. I ignored him and instead looked at the older police officer chatting with Kevin. Is he the one running this police station? The older police officer's expression changed, and he coughed lightly. Mr. Kevin, please watch your language. Kevin could only shut his mouth awkwardly, glaring at me with resentment. I was taken into the interrogation room. Unlike in my previous life, when I was so scared I almost cried and was easily led by their words, this time, I refused to directly answer any leading questions that were unfavorable to me. I only insisted on repeating everything that happened yesterday. The principal is only one. I saw nothing. I never even entered the alley where the incident occurred. I am innocent. After being interrogated back and forth for a full hour, the police still couldn't find any way to break my statement, because what I said was exactly what had truly happened in this lifetime. Moreover, Sarah's outburst yesterday, accusing me of standing by without helping, further confirmed the truth of my words. The truth is just that obvious, but the two police officers interrogating me were clearly not satisfied. One of them got impatient and slammed the table. Frank, I advise you to confess and cooperate, admit your guilt willingly, and don't stubbornly resist. If the police find evidence to convict you, the sentence will be much heavier. You know, if you confess now, we can still consider it as a voluntary surrender. Maybe you can even work out a settlement. Just pay some compensation and that'll be the end of it. Hee hee. They're trying to use both soft and hard tactics to trick me into confessing first. Sarah has already filed a report yesterday. And the case has been officially registered. If there's a case, it must be solved. It's only a matter of time before Kevin is found, but the Johnson family is the wealthiest and most powerful in the county. We definitely cannot sit back and watch Kevin go to jail. Therefore, I, who had contact with this matter, became the perfect scapegoat. It wasn't difficult to bribe Sarah. It wasn't even impossible to find a way to bribe a few corrupt individuals. But I am no longer the one who was caught off guard in my previous life. In my past life, I had rehearsed countless times in my regrets the words and methods to counter injustice, so, when faced with the same entrapment as in my previous life, I simply smiled faintly and said, I am not guilty, so why should I confess? The truth is right in front of you. You know perfectly well who the real culprit is. Some things lose their charm when spelled out too clearly. The young officer was furious and pointed at me, saying, What nonsense are you talking? Do you believe I would? I chuckled lightly and nodded, cutting him off. I believe you, of course. I believe you're capable of anything. But, then, my expression turned cold. I'm afraid my classmates have already posted and live-streamed about this matter. It's already blown up. Oh, and I'm a recommended admissions student to Peking University. As early as yesterday. After Sarah caused a scene at school and slandered me, I already called and informed the teachers at Peking University. I believe the university administration is also closely monitoring this situation. Are you sure you want to keep going down this dark path? The young police officer instantly broke out in a cold sweat and sat back down, speechless. I continued to maintain my smile. In this life, I will make full use of all the power I have at my disposal. I will never allow myself to be at the mercy of others, even if the situation is unfavorable for me. I cannot repeat the mistakes of my previous life. Being directly admitted to Peking University is my best card to play. Unfortunately, in my previous life, I failed to make good use of it. It even made him the straw that broke the camel's back. The young police officer looked displeased. Why would Peking University go to such great lengths for a student like you who hasn't even officially enrolled yet? I calmly replied, I've already been admitted. No university would allow its reputation to be tarnished, especially, that's Peking University. The older police officer looked grave and stopped the younger one from arguing with me. The two of them quickly walked out. I sat quietly in the chair, my mind racing. In my previous life, I didn't ask for help. And suddenly and unexpectedly, I was surrounded by negative public opinion. I was almost instantly taken into formal custody. The school naturally wouldn't help me, but now, positive public opinion is subtly leaning in my favor. I'm not really sure if Peking University will get involved, but using their name to intimidate others might work. Soon, the two of them returned again. Following behind them was the older police officer who had once chatted happily with Kevin. I didn't know who he was, but presumably the rank is not low. The older police officer smiled apologetically and said to me, Frank, sorry for wasting your time. After investigation, we can confirm that you are not a suspect. Do you need to go back to school now? I can arrange a car to take you back. I nodded. That would be a big help. I walked out of the interrogation room with my head held high, and as I passed through the hall, I saw Kevin and Sarah were still there. I provocatively flipped them the middle finger. Kevin immediately looked as if he had been constipated for 7 or 8 days, his face turning from green to black. Sarah almost lost her mind on the spot, roaring, What the hell are you all doing? Why did you let him go? He molested me, and he must compensate me with 300,000 before he can be released. Quick, arrest him, throw him in jail. Unfortunately, no one was willing to indulge her hysterics. One of them even snapped, Watch your language, at my insistence. The police car drove straight through the school gate and stopped right under the building where I was. I deliberately dawdled, waiting until after class had ended to get off the bus. It happened to be the 20-minute break between classes, and the students had already noticed the commotion, gathering in small groups on the balcony to look down. I made a grand gesture, waving in all directions, Classmates, the police have uncovered the truth and cleared my name. Frank, am back. A wave of cheers immediately erupted from the crowd of onlookers. I know that if Sarah had returned today, they would have cheered just the same, but today, it's me who has returned. In their eyes, the innocent one is naturally me. I didn't go back to the classroom. I was directly called to the principal's office. The homeroom teacher was also there, looking me up and down before letting out a sigh of relief. Thank goodness you're okay. That Sarah is really outrageous. She actually came back to slander you again after everything was already cleared up yesterday. Are you okay? They didn't do anything to you, did they? I shook my head and said, I'm fine. Even though I was fine, I knew the matter wasn't completely resolved. Sarah and Kevin probably won't let things end so easily. The scapegoat has already been chosen, and it's not something that can be easily changed. After thinking it over, I made a phone call to Peking University. On the other end of the line, the teacher, upon hearing the details, spoke in a serious tone. I understand, if you really didn't do it, no one can just slander and throw mud at students from our law school. They really think our Peking University Law School is an easy target. My worries were indeed justified. Not long after, a news report accusing a Peking University recommended student of molesting a female classmate suddenly topped the hot search list. A short video also saw numerous marketing accounts simultaneously reposting and exposing this matter. Sarah held up her ID card and publicly reported being sexually harassed, but because the other party was protected by a prestigious university, she couldn't get justice. This short video also garnered millions of views. At first, my mom was just watching it as gossip, sharing the short video with me to chat about it. Frank, look quickly, there's someone who, like you, was recommended for admission to Peking University, and relying on the favor of the school and teachers, sexually harassed a female classmate. What a beast. Our Frank is so well behaved, with good grades and such good manners. Fortunately, there was a young man named Kevin who bravely stepped in, chased away the beast. And now the two of them are even dating. Could this be the legendary case of repaying a life-saving grace with one's own hand? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Mom, the beast they're talking about in the video, could it possibly be me? As for Kevin, well, a molester has transformed into a brave and righteous young man. I can only say, money is a good thing. At the end of the complaint video, my mom could no longer smile, because, below the short video, someone anonymously posted all the personal information of the molester. Of course, it was me. I spent some effort to finally put my mother's mind at ease. Looking at the hot search with tens of thousands of comments piled up, I couldn't help but sneer coldly. Isn't Sarah just trying to cause a scene? I'll play along with her. Just like in the previous life, she dragged Peking University into it. But unfortunately, in my previous life, I was at a disadvantage in public opinion. The students on campus all spoke with one voice, claiming that the harassment really happened, as if they had seen it with their own eyes. Accumulated slander destroys the bone. Even if I am not wrong, I am still guilty, but the situation in this life is vastly different. By doing this, Sarah will only provoke resentment among the classmates. I control the base of public opinion. The more the hype escalates, the more beneficial it is for me. At Peking University, I had a phone conversation with the school a couple of days ago. They even sent a political science teacher to visit me specifically. After verifying the details at the police station, they assured me, leave it to me. When it comes to the school's reputation, what does a local bully like Sarah and Johnson's family from a small county even matter? After the topic started trending, I soon received a call from Peking University. I took another reassurance pill. The law school at Peking University was already in an uproar. As the teacher put it, no one had dared to challenge the law school's authority for many years. The senior students were all eager to give it a try, especially this time. It was a completely undeserved misfortune, and I was even framed by someone. The truth is on my side, the advantage is on my side. My story has already been used by the professor to teach a practical lesson while the iron is hot, when being slandered and defamed. How should one gather evidence? How should it be judged? Which article of civil or criminal law applies? On the phone, the teacher still had the leisure to tease with a hint of sarcasm. Frank, congratulations. Even before officially enrolling, you've already made a name for yourself in our law school. You're practically a household name now. I smiled bitterly. Who would want that kind of fame? But I still felt a sense of relief, judging by the teacher's attitude. It shouldn't affect my enrollment. As for Sarah and Kevin, public opinion is truly a double-edged sword. The next day, I went to school as usual, and as soon as I entered, I noticed people pointing at me. Although most were skeptical, still, a small number of people were inevitably affected. After all, in Sarah's words, I am that spoiled, entitled brat who relies on connections to dominate everything. But I didn't pay it any mind. Having lived through 2 lifetimes, my mindset has truly been tempered. As I crossed the playground and reached the corner of the teaching building, Sarah suddenly stopped me. Frank, we need to talk. I glanced at her. What do we have to talk about? If you don't want me to keep posting those long rants. Sarah, however, looked completely confident. I kept a cold expression, subtly glancing at a figure that flashed by in the corner, and nodded. I led Sarah to a corner of the teacher's dormitory at the school, which had long been uninhabited. Spit it out if you have something to say. This area is usually deserted, only occasionally were there a few clandestine couples. Sarah glanced around, confirming that no one was around. Her expression turned smug. So, did you turn off your private messages? In this time, you must have gotten at least 8,000, if not 10,000, private messages cursing your ancestors for 18 generations, right? I nodded, non-committal. Your goal has been achieved, and there are even threats to set my house on fire. If you don't want to be doxxed further, I suggest you admit your mistake and settle this quickly. My demand isn't high. Compensate me 500,000, and this matter will be over. I'll agree to reconcile with you. Why should I admit to something I didn't do? I frowned and, without waiting for Sarah to say more, turned to ask her, I've always been curious. Why are you so determined to slander me? You were molested and raped by Kevin, and I feel for you, but I'm even more innocent. I had no idea you were assaulted. Is it just because I happened to pass by the alley where it happened? Shouldn't Kevin be the one to blame? Why are you still defending him? Sarah just sneered coldly and didn't answer me. I understood her concerns and took out my phone to reassure her. Don't worry, I'm not recording. I just want to know the truth. I want to die with clarity. As I spoke, I also patted my shirt and pants pockets to show her, and even flipped through the 3 books I was holding to indicate that I had nothing hidden. Sarah's expression relaxed, no longer pretending. Letting jealousy and hatred materialize on her face. I just hate you. Why do you get to be effortlessly recommended for admission to Peking University? Why do I study so hard, yet my grades can barely get me into a second-tier college? Why do you look down on me so dismissively? Seeing the puzzled expression on my face, Sarah became even more resentful. Oh, great. You don't even remember that I gave you a love letter, so that's why she held a grudge against me. Then I'm a bit wronged. I am indeed somewhat popular, and love letters are slipped into my desk drawer every now and then. Sometimes I received several in a single day, but my heart was set on studying, constantly thinking about changing my fate through education so that I could give my mother a better life in the future. How could I have had any interest in romance? Those pink, fragrant envelopes. I didn't even look at them and just asked my desk mate to handle them all. I truly don't remember. Is that the only reason? Sarah shook her head and sneered. Of course not. Are you asking me why I helped Kevin? Because you're broke. Neither you nor I can compete with Kevin's family. They're the wealthiest in our county, worth billions. They can have the police come after you if they want, or send you trending on social media. What do you have to compare with that? Now I've lost my innocence, and I can't even get into college. I have to protect at least one thing, right? My biggest regret is reporting it to the police, but at the time, I had no idea Kevin was the only heir of the richest family in our county. They promised me that if I could help Kevin get the case dismissed, I could become his girlfriend, in the future, even if I can't officially marry into the family as the young mistress. Being a second or third wife would still ensure I never have to worry about food and drink for the rest of my life. If it were you, you'd definitely make the same choice I did. The more she spoke, the more contemptuous Sarah's expression became, turning into mockery. What's so great about you getting into Peking University? In the end, you're still destined to work for the rich. By then, you might even end up working under Kevin. Addressing me respectfully as Madam, Sarah has been blinded by greed. She began to fantasize about her future as a wealthy lady. I shook my head as I watched her despicable behavior. Sarah took a few heavy breaths, suddenly glanced back, and laid down her final card once more. Now, tell me your decision. Will you give me 500,000 to settle this, or should I continue to push it online? I calmly shook my head. I am innocent. I won't do it. Sarah sneered and nodded. You brought this upon yourself. As soon as she finished speaking, her expression suddenly changed, and she rushed over, grabbing my hand and rubbing it vigorously against her body a few times. Then she tousled her hair, smeared her face, quickly tore her school uniform to shreds, and managed to squeeze out a few tears within 3 seconds, screaming, "Rape, help." With that, she turned and scrambled out, stumbling and crawling. Just as she reached the corner, she stopped, wiped away her tears, turned back, and gave me a smile. You're done for. This material is enough to edit into evidence. A sound came from around the corner. Kevin walked out, still holding his phone. Laughing arrogantly, weren't you acting all tough? Let me tell you, I've got connections up top. Crushing you is as easy as stepping on an ant. I say you're guilty. How dare you still cry innocence? This time, if I don't make sure you rot in prison, I'll take your last name. I see, I knew it. Sarah wouldn't risk coming to see me again, it was just to slander me one more time, not necessary. If our family had an unfilial descendant like you, my dad would be so angry he'd jump out of his urn. I remained calm. You damn. Kevin was about to speak when the principal, homeroom teacher, dean, and a group of others came running over, panting heavily and shouting as they ran, "You all!" Sarah's expression changed instantly, and she immediately rushed over, sobbing, to hug the homeroom teacher, playing the victim first. "Teacher, you have to stand up for me. He really tried to assault me." I couldn't help but click my tongue in disbelief. Her expression changed way too fast. "What kind of school are you even attending? You should just go into the entertainment industry." The teacher's expression was unreadable. He looked at me, then at Sarah, who was fake crying in his arms. Then at Kevin with his forced smile, and finally at the school administrators. In the end, he looked up at the sky, sighed, and said, "Then call the police." I shrugged as well. "Then call the police." Until the police arrived, I seemed to unintentionally glance up at the corner of the wall and delivered the final blow to Kevin and Sarah, who were still feeling proud. "Sarah, I wasn't lying to you earlier. I really didn't record anything, but you might not know that. To prevent secret rendezvous and sneaky smoking, last week, the principal installed small cameras in several spots. If anyone is found lingering here, the dean of students will be sent immediately to catch them, right, teacher?" I looked at the homeroom teacher. The homeroom teacher stifled a laugh. "The quality is good, and the sound reception is excellent. Otherwise, how could the principal and the others have arrived so promptly? It was the security office that notified them." That's how I found out about this matter, because I often stayed at school to study on my own. I was always the last one to leave. That night, when they were installing the camera, I happened to see it, watching Kevin and Sarah's faces instantly turn as dark as charcoal. I let out a heavy breath and smiled. I copied the video file and sent it to Peking University. An unknown temporary worker accidentally leaked one online. A victim, in an instant, became a perpetrator, helping the very criminal who had assaulted her. There's no news more sensational than this. Public opinion instantly flipped. The seniors and juniors from the law school were once again in an uproar. They took to the internet to voice their opinions. Many even offered to help me with the lawsuit. Taking advantage of the momentum, I went online to voice my opinion and gather evidence from that indecent assault case. Soon, a dashcam file was released by a netizen, once again igniting a trending topic. The video clearly shows that the perpetrator of the indecent assault was Kevin. The person who released the video also claimed that they had clearly submitted a copy of it to the police, but for some reason, I was still identified as a suspect later on. This statement was even more damaging. The city quickly established a special task force to investigate. Kevin was swiftly arrested, although Sarah was the victim. She was also involved in spreading rumors and making false accusations, and was likewise detained. In less than 3 days, a detailed investigation and handling document was published online. It confirmed that Kevin was indeed a molester without a doubt. Additionally, several corrupt police officers suspected of accepting bribes were dismissed from public service and approved for arrest. I recognized the faces of those few corrupt individuals. They were the police officers who attempted to frame and coerce a confession that day, as well as the person who was happily chatting with Kevin. With the help of Peking University, alumni from my law school formed a temporary legal team to assist me in formally filing a civil lawsuit against Sarah and Kevin, seeking compensation. As my lawsuit progressed, it intermittently made headlines for a month. The day the verdict was announced, it immediately topped the charts, because that day, it was broadcast live from start to finish. Many curious onlookers flooded into the live stream, and the number of viewers surpassed 3 million within just 10 minutes. In the courtroom, the senior students eloquently presented their case, using the evidence they had gathered to meticulously detail Sarah and Kevin's crimes. Sarah couldn't withstand the blow and actually fainted in front of the entire nation. Her life was over. The final verdict was announced. Kevin was found guilty of sexual assault and rape and was sentenced to prison. Sarah was found guilty of spreading rumors, making false accusations, and attempted extortion, and was also sentenced to prison. Additionally, both individuals are required to pay me a substantial amount in compensation for emotional distress. Countless netizens expressed their satisfaction. After the trial, Sarah's parents came over, pointing at my nose and demanding to know why I was being so ruthless. She's still a girl, after all. How can you be so cruel? How is she supposed to face others in the future? You're too vicious. I won't let you get away with this. I took out the voice recorder, played back the insults they had just hurled at me, and calmly replied, "Feel free to seek revenge if you wish. I will reserve the right to pursue legal action. Watching Sarah's parents flee in panic, I smiled, finally understanding where Sarah's extreme personality came from. As the beam is crooked, the timber is not straight. That's not the end of it. 1 year later, the Johnson family collapsed in an instant. This is thanks to Sarah's arrogant words that day. Pulling up one radish brought mud along with it. It turned out to be a shocking black industry chain that was uncovered. Kevin's parents were directly imprisoned, one sentenced to death and the other to life imprisonment. In a way, it was a family reunion of a different kind. On the day of the college entrance exam, the students entered the battlefield. I, on the other hand, gathered my thoughts and found a summer job at a law firm. Once the summer vacation was over, I would embark on the next journey of my life. I had a very comfortable time during my college years, thanks to the notoriety from the previous false accusation incident. Both the professors and the senior students have been very considerate toward me. Sarah is dead. Kevin's resentment toward Sarah's words led to the downfall of the family. After being released from prison, he actually stabbed her to death. Then I went in again. This time it was the death penalty. I also ended up trending again. I got a new nickname on campus, Trending Bro. I successfully secured a spot for graduate school and went on to earn my doctorate. Just after turning 30, I quickly became a rising star in the legal field and smoothly became a partner at a well-known law firm in Beijing. My career path has been remarkably smooth. I have successfully achieved my goals. I've bought a house and a car in Beijing, and I'm basically financially free every year. I bring gifts to visit my homeroom teacher. I'm grateful for the selfless help she gave me back then. My mom has fully retired. She either travels or goes square dancing, and she seems to be getting younger and younger. In this life, I am complete. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.